Hey, well, here we go, everybody. Welcome back to TBN. It stands for Tuesday Bro News Day. This is like the fifth version of this stream that has ever existed. We've done a lot of stuff, but what we do nowadays is we sort of unpack some news, give some hot takes on some news as it relates to what we do. Yeah, the world of vaping, tobacco control, tobacco harm reduction, cigarettes, smoking, science, policy, legislation, Stanton Glantz, amongst other things. I am your freedom-loving libertarian host, Grim Green, now joined by my far-left fact-checker, socialist probably, Danielle Jones, president of CASA. Welcome, Danielle Jones.
Here.
How you doing today?
Socialism for all, bitches.
Socialism for everybody.
Just kidding.
Socialism for the people that want it. I don't know.
If you want it, have it. If you don't, have a nice day. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, have a nice day. And then we're joined by, CEO of CASA. That's Alex Clark over there. Hi, Alex Clark.
Not Alex Jones.
No, not Alex Jones. I know. It takes all of my, mental awareness to get the name Clark out of my mouth. It wants to come out Alex Jones, and it just every single time. We have Alex Clark here today because today, apart from some newsy bits and the such as, and doing a little bit of a recap on World Vape Day, I got some cool threads from World Vape Day that I wanted to share. We do want to spend the majority of the time today. Whoops, that can't be up there yet. Does all tobacco kill? That's the question that we're going to be answering today. Depending on who you talk to, you might get some slightly varying or differing answers, but we're going to try, as we do on this show. You know, we believe in science. We follow science, cold, hard, data. That's what we follow. So what does the science say about it? Well, science told me that I was wrong for literally 44 years of my life about the harms of smokeless tobacco, but we're going to get there. Thank you guys so much for being here in the chat. Ryan, JB, Ian, I see you there. Pam, welcome. Janine, possibly one of my favorite people on the internet now. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Breeze Tones, don't worry. I'll be talking about you a little bit later as well, Mr. Breeze Tones. But I guess before we jump into anything real, investigative journalism, we should do a couple newsy things and the such as. Feels right. Yeah, just that groovy beat.
Our weird porno news music.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love it. It's perfect for this show. It's perfect for this stream.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I guess I want to mention, and not just because two people from CASA are here, testimonials. Alex Clark, tell us about the importance of testimonials, please.
Well, your stories matter. They have power. People need to hear them. And as I was reminded in watching another podcast on another channel, the consumer voice is underrepresented in these discussions about access to reduced risk products and oftentimes completely overlooked or disregarded. And we've seen, of course, consistent attempts to paint consumers as essentially just shills for tobacco companies or otherwise not really in control of their own stories.
Yeah.
It's vitally important that you keep getting our stories up and out there so that lawmakers can pay attention to them.
I agree. I very much agree. I think it's one of the most important things we can do. I tell people, wherever you can do a testimonial, do a testimonial. It's not just CASA that does it. Lots of orgs do it. And if you ever run across literally any vape org that wants a testimonial, do it. Definitely submit it, because that's what's going to, I think that's what's going to change minds and I always bring up Julie Casimiro over there in Rhode Island. Danielle and I talked about her weeks ago. She changed her mind basically from testimonials. She went to a vape shop and saw adults coming in and purchasing vape gear and talking to them. Those customer stories are what kind of changed her mind. And you're right that we do get painted as like a helpless, we're just victims of addiction, victims of big tobacco, victims of marketing and targeted messaging, and we're just helpless and we have no. That's not the case. That's not reality. And so we need to get our stories out there to reflect more of the reality of harm reduction, the reality of quitting smoking. So testimonials. Thobai, have you done your testimonial? Mowgli? Jason? I've seen you guys here week after week. I'm just making sure you guys are doing your testimonials, for CASA. Real critical stuff. So, of course, testimonials for CASA. And like I said, literally anywhere you can do a testimonial, do it. Just fill it out. Make your story heard. I just sound like a broken record because that's what's going to change people's minds. Say it week after week. I thought we would do some retro vape news from 2000. This is vape news from 2014. And I just wanted to talk a little bit, because we got Danielle and Alex here. We can maybe talk a little bit about the MSA, little master settlement agreement that happened. Danielle, when did you first do that one video? How long ago was that?
Was that 2000? Wait, I can tell you.
15?
It was my guess.
I feel like it's got to be 2015.
Let's look. It was, okay, it says 6 years ago. Will YouTube give me a date? 2000, April 13th,
wow.
2015, you guys.
Wow, that's crazy. So we just passed the 6-year anniversary of The Truth About Vaping, which really covered the MSA. And that was my first, exposure to the MSA and what it was. But even back in 2014, which is when this article came out in Reuters, analysts were speculating back then that electronic cigarettes were going to displace cigarette sales, and it's going to affect, these master settlement payments and paybacks. Now, will you fact check me on something? Do master settlement payments owed have to be paid with master settlement money? So a state can't use tobacco taxes or taxes from gasoline to pay back MSA bonds. I think the way that the MSA was written, I think that's how it has to be done, but I wasn't sure.
So you're kind of talking about two different things, right? So
Sure.
Master settlement agreement, right, means that tobacco companies pay states a certain amount based on sales, right? So it's like profit sharing, basically.
Right.
So what a lot of states did, for anybody that hasn't watched the video, is that they, you ever see those J.G. Wentworth commercials? You have a structured settlement, but you need cash now. A lot of states don't want to wait for this payment that they get every year. They want like a giant amount up front. So what they did is they, basically did bonds, essentially kind of in a way took out loans for the amount that was calculated they would be getting, right? So that's guaranteed money that's coming, but over the years, and somebody else would give them, like a bank or whatever, would give them a lump sum for it so that they could spend it now. Now, to my knowledge, they can pay that loan, let's call it, back any way that they want to. They can use whatever funds they want, but they do have to pay it back. The problem comes when the tobacco money is lower than what they calculated it ought to be. So it's not going to cover, the payments that they have to repay on these loans. I'm using very simplified language right now.
Sure.
And so there are states, and I talked about this in my first video, that had to announce that they had to pull, money from reserve funds or their general budgets in order to cover those payments that they owed, because the tobacco money wasn't covering it the way that they thought it would, because they projected what they would get based on cigarette sales at that time. But cigarette sales started miraculously lowering beyond projections, right? This was unexpected. And so, they can pay that back however they want to, but it creates drama if they have to use, funds that were supposed to be for, I don't know, education or roads or, whatever it is.
And lots of states, even in 2014, where tobacco bonds were already being forecasted. So this main analyst said that these tobacco bonds are going to default within the next 10 years, by the end of the decade. That's like right now. Is that not like right now? I mean, if he's talking about this decade in 2014, he's talking about 2010 to 2020. That's the decade. I haven't heard. I don't know. Maybe I haven't been actively looking for states defaulting on their, tobacco bonds. But I feel like this is a thing that's going to be happening much more quickie.
I think, Alex, you might know better than me, but in terms of following up on that, I think a lot of them have basically kicked the can down the road by either restructuring it or taking out more money in order to cover it. And so they kind of, how people go broke, and so they just keep taking out more loans to pay out.
Borrowing.
Right.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that that's how a lot of them are handling this, essentially. Alex, if you know more, please chime in. But I'd heard some reports of that.
No, I don't have any more details, but that sounds the most plausible. Also, states are, of course, raising taxes on cigarettes and other tobacco products, enacting new taxes on vapor products. A lot of the push to tax vapor is not transparently, but to those of us who've been following this issue, clearly an effort to recoup some of that money that they're losing from declining cigarette sales. And it's possible that COVID-19 gave them just a little bit of a break with smoking leveling off or going back up in some places.
Right. And the wonderful Jim McDonald is in chat. Hi, Jim. We love you.
Hi, Jim McDonald.
Hi, Jim.
He jumped in and said, yeah, they just keep refinancing the loans, which is what I thought that I had read. So they're just kicking the can down the road. It's not going to get any better if that's the way that this is going to happen. It's right. I mean, I'm not an economist I barely graduated high school, you guys. So I'm not an economist, but I do know that you can't just owe money and then keep borrowing money to pay back the money you owe. That doesn't make any sense. And these people are supposed to be smarter than all of us.
Well, that's the more I just recently kind of got into investing, and that is kind of one of the things. I mean, it's not free money. You're borrowing it, you're paying interest on it, and there are fees associated with all of this. So instead of defaulting on the loan or the bond or whatever, it does make better sense to just kind of roll out what, when you're going to be able to pay it back. So I'm sure, and also not an economist, also just barely graduated high school.
Sure.
But I assume somebody with some financial background could explain that in more understandable detail, but it seems kind of normal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and
for the big, establishments like the government and stuff, they do kind of tend to do that.
To just dabble in just $1 million debt, like 800
or trillion or billion
debt.
Or,
that's perfectly normal. This is fine.
Is there a limit?
This is fine. And it just, it's one of those things like, this is why I'm a libertarian, because when I was 27, got myself completely out of debt. I paid off all my debt. I paid off my car. I paid off every outstanding credit card I had. I was at zero debt, and I have lived that way until I bought a house. I can manage my money better than the federal government can. Definitely.
I would say probably a lot of Americans can manage their money.
Yeah, definitely. And so what I thought was great in this Reuters article was these quotes that have aged really poorly. Really poorly. Dick Larkin, who was the senior vice president and director of credit analysis, he said, e-cigarettes are not a replacement. They're just another tool for people to quit, but they're not a substitute. For me, it's a fad. He is a smoker himself. He said e-cigarettes are a threat to the MSA, but I don't think they're a material threat to the MSA. I feel like they were a pretty material threat to the MSA, considering states like New Jersey and New Mexico had to go into their reserve funds like the next year to pay back what they owed on these bonds. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a pretty material threat, Richard Larkin.
I mean,
didn't age well. Bonnie Herzog from Wells Fargo predicted it. She called it. She said, these e-cigs are definitely replacing smoking. That's the trend that's happening. This is what we see happening. Here's what's going to happen. She was the only one that got it, and all the other states went, no, that's fine. We won't default. And then you get starting to be New Jersey, and you're paying back money that you owe already with money that you now owe on again with its own interest, and it's bananas.
It is
bananas. Bananas. So, yeah, MSA, fun stuff. fun stuff. I'm also going to link in the description to an article from ProRepublica that is a financial sort of website, and they go very much more into this whole how this works and who owes what things and how many bonds you can cash at what certain time, and how New Jersey cashed bonds, but then in order to pay back these, they had to cash more bonds, but they still need to pay back these. It's this ridiculous thing. And, the financial people of these states are so like seemingly lackadaisical about it. Like, this one guy from New Jersey, hang on, I'm trying to find this. It's a really long article. And there's this one part, this guy from New Jersey who's just like, oh yeah, we just blew through that money in like 2 years. We just burned through it all. It says, by using the tobacco bond money to build schools, Ohio didn't have to sell general obligation bonds, which are repaid with taxes to cover the construction costs. Okay. But not all states use the tobacco debt for such long-term investments. New Jersey stands as a prime example. The state first issued a tobacco bond in 2002 and 2003, spackling holes in the state budget with the $3.5 billion they raised. David Rousseau, who was the deputy treasurer at the time, says, we basically burned through it all in 2 years. He says, it was not one of New Jersey's better financial moves. And I'm thinking, how can you be so like laissez-faire about this when it's going to come down, like it's going to hurt your state. It's going to hurt your taxpayers. Like, this is not like a, oops.
I feel like I know how they can be so blasé about it. It's because in government, we have administrations, right? Like, you only have to worry about this while you're in charge of it.
Right, exactly.
And once you're out of office, or your administration who appointed you is out of office, it's somebody else's problem. Like, they're all short-term thinkers, right?
That's
because
a problem for future politicians.
Exactly. I just need to do a good job right now.
Yeah, not no regard for the people that have lived in New Jersey their entire lives, and have been paying taxes. Now they're going to be screwed for something that took place before they, maybe before they were even around or something like this. Like, this is decades old stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me. And it's just like, yeah, we basically just burned through $3.5 billion in 2 years. Yeah, it was a weird thing. We just did it. I'm like, whoa, whoa, that's crazy to me. Yeah, 3.5 billion, no big deal. No big deal. So I'm going to post a link down in the description to that Reuters article, as well as to the ProRepublica article. It's real long, but it goes into much more depth. And if I could find the quote, I'm still going to try to find it, because they were talking about paying back the bonds using MSA money. And that's how it had to be done, because that's how it was built into the agreement. So
some of the states may have put that into their own, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
The legislature may have said, to basically try to prevent, future administrations or whatever from screwing this up. They may have they may have regulated themselves and said, no, the state of, I don't know, blah, blah, can only pay these back using this. We can't pull from our general fund, because that will, they may have done that themselves, but it's not related to that self-regulation, basically, that they would have done. It wasn't related to the actual MSA payments themselves.
So you're telling me it gets even more confusing than I thought it did.
Oh, yes.
That's what you're telling me right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. Good. I'm glad so many people's literal lives and livelihoods are part of this. Whoops, we spent $3.5 billion in 2 years. Oh, sorry, guys. It was weird. No big deal. Okay, one more last thing in the newsy bits here. In news that surprises nobody, the World Health Organization has reasserted its anti-vaping stance ahead of World No Tobacco Day. This was written by the prolific Alex Norcia for Filter Magazine. And the thing is, Alex is such a good writer that if you start reading this article, you'll just finish it. I got to the bottom of this article and I went, that's all. There's no more?
Oh,
why didn't you write more? Alex Norcia, Alex Clark, Alex Jones, Alex Norcia. This is getting
There's so many Alexes.
It is.
We're all over the place, man.
There are dozens of us. It says in this article, As part of the campaign to mark World No Tobacco Day on May 31st, the World Health Organization has reasserted its abstinence-only approach to nicotine. In a press release titled, "Quit Tobacco, Be a Winner," the World Health Organization said that the tobacco industry has promoted e-cigarettes as cessation aids under the guise of contributing to global tobacco control while employing strategic marketing tactics to hook children in that same portfolio of products, making them available in over 15,000 attractive flavors. The agency also insisted that the scientific evidence on e-cigarettes as cessation aids was inconclusive and that switching from conventional tobacco products to e-cigarettes is not quitting. All of those just made me red with rage, like instantly.
Yeah.
Completely instantly. And what's so funny to me, I was just talking to Casey about this. The more, I mean, this is like, obvious, right? The more science that comes out and the more people start talking about the benefits of vaping and cessation and harm reduction and things like this, the harder World Health Organization just doubles down on what they've already said.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much more evidence. Oh, even just over the last 2 years. I mean, not even including like the Cochrane Library about e-cigarettes for smoking cessation. And World Health Organization still just goes, nope, still no. Still no. There's still no evidence.
At this point, it's like all of them, the World Health Organization included, are all just sort of grasping at straws. Yeah. They will pick the next hysterical, sensational sounding issue that we may or may not have with nicotine, vaping, whatever it is, and splash it across all the headlines. And that's the new problem. Oh, we knew that there was something wrong with these things. And
yeah.
Even though they don't actually have very good evidence to back it up. Of course, we're talking about the whole brain damage thing and all of that. Nicotine really is coming into focus now, yes. Both on the sort of positive side of regulation and helping people out, and also as another thing that they're going to demonize. So,
but that's what it's all going to come down to, isn't it? Nicotine.
Yeah.
That's the smoking gun. That's the magic key. And we've studied nicotine for a really long time, have we not? I mean, hasn't NIH been doing nicotine research for years and years and years and years? Like, we know a lot about nicotine. I feel like you're not going to be able to. They might be able to. I feel like you're not going to be able to twist or distort the reality around nicotine that much.
They're going to have a hard time.
They're going to try real hard
to see. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this is going to play out. Because on the one hand, we do have a decent amount of science on nicotine use in regards to nicotine replacement therapy, right? Gums, patches.
Yeah.
It's also has been studied for like neuroprotective and like, neurological effects, essentially. Alex and I were actually just looking at some research this morning talking about that.
I saw that same research.
Yeah. But it's interesting because, when I did my Speaking of the Truth About Vaping, episode 2 that I did was about nicotine. But there's also an element to nicotine where, let's say pre or even post NRT coming onto the market, nicotine was largely studied in the context of smoking. There wasn't a lot of isolation outside of smoking a cigarette. And so there is sort of this weird balance between, you've got like everything related to smoking, and then you've got like the stuff related to NRT and the stuff related to, because they're usually using NRT in these, like dementia and Alzheimer's and ulcerative colitis studies. They're using transdermal patches usually. So you've got like that kind of science. But in the minds of a lot of these people, those are like divorced from each other in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? It's like, this is this science and this is this science, and they don't have anything to do with each other. And when we talk about tobacco, we don't look at NRT. And when we talk about NRT, we don't talk about vaping. Or it's very bizarre. The mental gymnastics, I feel like, is really intense when it comes to nicotine. Yeah. And I feel like they're going to have, the government themselves in a lot of ways has been fighting misinformation about nicotine because they want to promote NRT in a lot of ways. So I've got like, worksheets from years ago that's like NIH or CDC trying to dispel myths about nicotine because they're trying to convince people to use gums and patches. But then you're having this shift with these, advocacy groups, if you will, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and everybody getting all bent out of shape about nicotine. And you've also got the drug manufacturers in the mix in here too.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to see what exactly is going to happen here, because, you know, the pharma manufacturers are not necessarily going to stand by, because this is their products, you know, that they're talking about. And, you know, Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids and everybody promotes these quit lines, which use NRT. And so how exactly are they going to, like, I don't feel like this is a very good path, but it seems to be the path that they're trying to go down.
Yeah, it does. And I think where they're going to land is like the worst thing that they can do is say nicotine's addictive. It's addictive. And that's it. That's the harm, right? And you can't say it's addictive. You can't say it's an addiction divorced from tobacco. You can't really even use that that terminology.
I will jump in. I mean, sort of the opposite of the mental gymnastics that Danielle was talking about is just sort of the mental slip and slide, I guess. That, you know, when we see the propaganda campaigns, the anti-smoking campaigns on TV. Now, I've been watching Rick and Morty on Adult Swim lately at 10:30 after Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
And of course, the Truth Initiative they have their contract with Adult Swim to, you know, hit the 25 and unders where they live on Adult Swim. And I saw a commercial with a young woman who was talking about her experience with vaping in high school and talking about how she was experiencing depression and cravings, and it was distracting from her schoolwork and all of this stuff. And I can only assume, you know, there was one particular product that she might have been using. The thing about the mental slip and slide is the part where they don't, again, talk about the nuance here. They don't talk about the varying levels of nicotine strength that people can use. They paint this as an issue where it's that one bad product, and it's against us, the kids, when of course we all know the reality. There's a lot of variety, and if you just give people the proper information, like, hey, you're not stuck using that, you know, 59 milligram nicotine salt product. You can try a lower nicotine strength. You can try a lower nicotine strength in a pod device, and you may be just as satisfied. And if your goal is to get completely away from nicotine, you can actually kind of take a soft way down. That's not, and that messaging, of course, is deemed not appropriate for people under 18 because maybe people don't know this, but nicotine replacement therapy has not been approved for use by anyone under the age of 18. So in a way, it's, you know, it is very much an intentional campaign to mislead people. On the other hand, folks kind of have their hands tied when talking about what type of nicotine use is appropriate for people under the age of 18.
Yes. And I think that some people under the age of 18 probably need nicotine, or probably, you know, I don't know. We've talked about this a lot in the past of being that predisposition, right?
Yeah, I have this theory that, like, and it comes from when I watched You Don't Know Nicotine. What's my favorite guy's name? Newhouse? Is that him?
Yeah, Paul Newhouse.
I just love him.
Yeah.
So he was talking about, you know, this concept of, well, I think it's actual science, right? That we have these nicotine receptors in our brain, and some people have more than others. And some people, you know, they kind of, if you have more, you kind of need that nicotine, then you are kind of at peak performance. And if you get more than that, then your performance may go down. But some people have more of them than other people. And I think, to me, that kind of sounds like some people are sort of predisposed to function better.
Yeah.
Like, I think I am a person that functions better when using nicotine. I think that was true when I was a younger child. I think it is true in my adult life. I do not advocate or promote the use of nicotine by people who are underage, because we don't do that.
It's illegal.
We don't do that. Don't break the law. However, I also think that we have to be pragmatic here, and we have to, like, I know that we don't want to encourage people to do stuff, but also, like, reality is a thing too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. Also, reality is a thing. I used to say that all the time when they're talking about raising the age to 21. And I thought, if you're an 18-year-old and you are smoking, you're going to make someone wait to get what will help them quit. Like, no, you got to wait a few years. Keep smoking, though. Wait a few years until you know, like, that seems crazy to me. And it especially goes for underage smokers. If there's a smoker I was 13, 14, 15 years old, 15-year-old smoker, you're going to make that guy wait 3 years before you give him something that'll help him quit smoking? And we talk about wanting to protect kids. Okay. That's great.
Yeah, the mental gymnastics is peak in this topic, in my opinion.
It's so weird.
It should have its own Olympic category.
Yeah, well, Matt Myers wins the gold medal for mental gymnastics of tobacco
100%
control.
would vote for that.
100%. Yeah, I did want to read one more quote from this really tremendously awesome article that I would highly encourage you to go read. But it's a quote from one of our new favorite people, Cliff Douglas. He says, "The World Health Organization blithely and quite wrongly claims that switching from smoking cigarettes, by far the leading preventable cause of premature death and disability, to far less harmful e-cigarettes, which they cleverly but unscientifically imply may be deadly, is not quitting," said Cliff Douglas, the director of the University of Michigan Tobacco Research Network and the American Cancer Society's former vice president for tobacco control. What they really mean is it isn't quitting nicotine, which they know does not cause cancer or the deadly diseases caused by smoking, and which the FDA and other national health authorities long ago determined to be both safe and effective in smoking cessation products. Yep. This is another one of those, well, what we said before, it's kind of coming back around, but now we're saying something new, but we need to continue saying what we said before while also saying something new, and oh shit, now we're stuck in a loop.
The past is inconvenient, isn't it? Tobacco control.
The past sure is inconvenient. Unbelievable. So I don't want to spend any more time on the World Health Organization. They make me so mad. So mad.
I'll never forget e-liquid being flammable. Yeah. That is by far my favorite claim.
Yeah, that was.
Wait, was that the World Health Organization?
Oh yes, it was. They had a tweet. Wow, they did these tweet graphics that were.
I pegged that as some sort of like backwater Florida health department.
Sure.
No, they totally did it on their account.
Yeah. WHO. Not just flammable, Alex Clark. Highly flammable. They said highly flammable e-liquids.
Highly flammable.
So I did some rudimentary science, and it turns out that's not true. But it I saw him like
claim. Lighter. Come on, light! He scienced it out. It was amazing.
I scienced it out. I tested the vapor. I said, well, maybe it's the vapor. Maybe it needs to be aerosolized. Like I'm trying to account for variables. It was very scientific.
Yeah. Very scientific. Not flammable even remotely.
Not even a little bit, World Health Organization. So, yeah, I'll have some links down in the description to the MSA stuff, the testimonials, everything we just talked about, the World Health Organization No Tobacco Day. I kind of wanted to shift gears real quick. I guess before we talk about smokeless tobacco, I kind of want to talk about World Vape Day that just happened just the other day, because that was kind of felt like a pretty good day. Did you guys get to do any Twittering on World Vape Day?
Yeah.
It was some good times.
Twittering.
I wasn't able to track down or reach out to anybody who had any numbers or anything for World Vape Day to see if anything was trending briefly or something. One thing that I saw that just upset me on Sunday was that World No Tobacco Day was trending.
Oh, did you? I kept checking, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it was trending really briefly, but it wasn't World No Tobacco Day. It was their WNT21 hashtag. Like we had WVD21.
Okay.
They had WNT21, and that's the one that got trending briefly. But I tried to tweet and be out there as much as humanly possible. It was super awkward because, here we are. It's Memorial Day weekend. We're fully vaccinated. We have friends coming over. We're barbecuing in the backyard. Nick is just looking at his phone, just hours. Just tweeting and tweeting and tweeting. And it's not like you can just get on Twitter and do a few things and then set it down. You don't get to do that. You're constantly retweeting and replying and liking and replying. And, I'll see someone's tweet and I'll go, nope, I know I have an article for that. So it's like go through my bookmarks and I'm trying to, find the right study to show this person's article and things like that. But I thought it went really well. I saw a lot of vapors kind of coming out of the woodwork. And I wanted to share kind of some threads that I felt like these were pretty cool threads. And I wanted Danielle Jones, you sent over a thread about that woman asking about smoking.
Yeah, this was the day before World Vape Day. So the day before. Yeah, because if anybody doesn't understand, World Vape Day is the day before the WHO's World No Tobacco Day. Mm-hmm. So it was like a clapback, basically, like we're going to do our own day before your day.
That.
Right, exactly. So, but the day before ours, even, I stumbled across a thread that seemed like a very genuine person, asking about quitting smoking, basically.
Right.
And what happened is I was like,
show it here on the screen. Hang on.
I was like, I am intrigued. And she, understandably was like, spare me the moral lectures, please. And I was like, girl, I feel you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I went through, and before I commented, I just decided to peek around. I just decided to look, what is the world of Twitter telling this woman to do?
Yeah.
And the answers, and these mostly were not vapors. I bet you $20 Charles, chimed in on this, and that's how I saw it on my timeline or my, Twitter feed.
Possibly, yeah.
But most of these were random people, not a ton of vapors, giving like very bizarre advice. And I can divide the advice that I saw into two camps.
Like this
it
guy.
Was either
just stop cold turkey, just quit.
Exactly. It was either
I
just
did it. Why
do
can't
it.
You?
Right. It was either basically just do it, you pussy. It's not that hard. That was option one.
Right.
Or option two was essentially a myriad of list of things to punish yourself, hurt yourself,
right.
Take things away from yourself. I saw things like don't hang out with your friends who smoke anymore. Don't go to places that you like where you smoked anymore. Eat hot peppers, hurt yourself. Do all of this punishment. Yeah. And it was so depressing to me to look through either man up or hurt yourself, make yourself suffer. Those were the popular options. Yep. And I just had to get on there and talk about how sad this made me feel. The fact that a lot of us out here in the harm reduction community know that there is a, oh my God, fun, easy, really enjoyable,
delightful
not painful way to do this, where you don't have to lash yourself for having committed the moral sin of consuming tobacco. I just could not.
And your tweet was spot on. You're like, just try nicotine vaping, Jules, or you don't have to beat yourself up over this. And I did the same thing. I liked your tweets, but I started reading through the other replies, and people are like, oh no, controlled breathing. And I'm like, bro, vaping, what? Controlled breathing, you psychopath? Sure, try it. I don't know. And look, I'm not going to rule out every tool in the tool bag just because I don't get it. But if you want to try controlled breathing, cool. When that fails, try vaping, because it will definitely work. And it kind of just reading through this thread, it's like you see the same I don't know, self-loathing.
Yes,
when they quit, they feel like they need to be punished or something. It's this weird mental thing where in order to quit, it has to be punishment.
Exactly. They've been brainwashed.
I do have to jump in just a little bit here on that one person's advice about,
breathing.
It's people, places, and things. And this is actually really good advice for anybody who's in the early stages of trying to quit any kind of substance use. And this was something that it is a bit of, there is that sense of self-punishment, or it's more of kind of temporary sacrifice. Sure. When I quit drinking, I had the privilege of being in an inpatient treatment facility for 4 months and then having to come back into the real world. And everybody tells you, don't go to the bar that you used to hang out with and think that you're just going to order a soda and be fine.
Right.
And it's really the advice is more about, it's self-protection. It's don't put yourself in that position where you're going to be overwhelmed with the stimulus and overwhelmed with all of those cues. It's your brain screaming, saying, give me a cigarette, give me another drink. And so early on, it's good to keep yourself out of those situations.
Yeah.
I've gotten to a point where, I can sit at a bar and hang out. I've hung out with you guys in bars and casinos and stuff before, and I'm fine. But in those first few months after getting out of a very controlled inpatient treatment facility, it was good to remind myself,
right.
I just can't go back to socializing at the bar down the street. And I have to give it some time. So I did just want to offer that up as a different perspective, but you are right, of course, that, a lot of this is, it's not just us. I think a lot of us, myself, I'll speak for myself here. I've internalized a lot of the anti-smoking, anti-smoker messages and come out of my experience with probably some severe damage to my self-esteem. But it's, now I've lost my train of thought. But it's the perspective.
The internalized bad feelings.
Yeah, we tend to put this at the feet of tobacco control, who it seems they believe that getting well involves some level of extreme discomfort, not just from changing your behavior, but in the strategies that you use to accomplish that. It can't feel good. It can't feel effortless. You have to work hard for it.
Right. Yeah. I cannot stand that mentality. That mentality is antiquated mentality. That mentality to me is no different than saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. Well, right. Have you always done this the really hard way? And that's how you're justifying is, well, we've always just done it the really hard way, so we just have to keep doing it that way. That's the same kind of really like crazy antiquated mentality. But yeah, I thought that thread was really interesting, and I like that you're just like, you don't have to beat yourself up, you don't have to punish yourself. There is actually a way to do this that is actually pretty enjoyable. And you might meet some people, you might pick up a new hobby, you might not, but it's super easy.
Yeah, because I think telling people like, oh, if you have friends that smoke, well, you just can't see them anymore. I mean, nobody's going to quit then. Like, what if it's a really good friend? You know what I mean? Like, my point in this was that, and I told them in the thread, my advice, and this is always my advice to somebody who's trying to quit, for the first time with vaping, is that you take a puff of your vapor device before you have your regularly scheduled cigarette. That's how I have seen a lot of success with people. Like, hit your vape and then smoke the way you were going to, and just keep doing that. And eventually you kind of get to the point where you've hit the vape and then you're like, I don't really need to pull I'll just keep, you know what I mean? You just don't need to.
Yeah.
But if you do it that way, and there's even Chantix and other things like that kind of have you still, you could still smoke a little bit and then you kind of wean off. I don't think that's crazy talk, but you could still go out with your friends on your lunch break to the smoker circle that you've always gone to, but you're vaping instead, and you don't have to lose your friends. I mean, friends are really important in difficult times like this, right? Like, I just feel like alienating yourself from a potential support system in order to do this, it just seems really harsh. And I think that there are ways that you can have both, that was it
does seem pretty counterproductive to cut people off. It's like, whatever happened to Danielle? She quit smoking. She can't be friends with us anymore. I don't know.
I know. We just can't be friends anymore.
Bizarre. So bizarre. Yeah.
Come on.
Look, I get it. So, but World Vape Day, what a great day. I wanted to share some threads that I saw. I'm going to call out Breeze Tones, Adam Breeze Tones. I know that you're here, so I'm going to call you out and poke fun at you. But you had a really great thread. He had a really great thread about Australia. He said, a thread. A current person who smokes in Australia and wants to switch to vaping. Here's what you need to do. It's ridiculous. Spoiler alerts, it's ridiculous. You need to prove to your doctor that you've tried every other method currently available before you may be given a prescription for nicotine. This is a real thing. You have to prove to your doctor that you've tried everything else and that vaping is only going to be your last resort, and then maybe you can get a prescription for it. Then you either need to find a local pharmacy that has these products or navigate the personal importation scheme. Pharmacies will likely have next to no experience in how different flavors can help switching, or a large range of these flavors, devices, troubleshooting, etc., like, a vape shop would. Our upcoming laws mean that pharmacies require registration to compound, dispense e-liquids with nicotine. Don't worry, the personal importation scheme means that you can buy from international sites because as a first-timer, this should be really easy to research and navigate, right? Even after having it explained to me, I'm still not 100% sure of how things are going to work in Australia. But then you need to know what kind of device you'll need and also navigate the milligram strength to suit that device. And it'll only take a little while for the Postal Service to get to you. All services are on time. Yeah, it may not be accurate. Unless you have a prescription, the package that you ordered from overseas, it may be seized or destroyed. That's okay, though, because I'm sure that every single worldwide vendor realizes that they now need to meet requirements/paperwork for Australia. They don't have enough things to do running a business. I forgot to mention that there's only a handful of doctors and GPs in Australia that actually believe vaping is a form of a lower risk alternative to combustible tobacco, so you'll probably need to help your long-term doctor even understand what vaping is, let alone the safety of it. In the meantime, there are plenty of shops that still sell cigarettes. In fact, they're everywhere you look. Combustible tobacco, even with all of the harm that they cause, are still readily available. But you'll be strong enough to resist that purchase urge, won't you? If I can do it, you can do it. Cold turkey. Once again, once you receive your products and succeed, it's likely that you'll feel invigorated mentally and physically, compelled to tell your story. You'll face incredible opposition because the rest of the world believes that what you're doing, that you're doing the same harm to yourself as you did when you were smoking. That might be my favorite tweet of all of World Vape Day. All of World Vape Day. You might feel better and you might want to tell your story, but here's what's coming up for you. They think that you're still smoking. In fact, many of the citations involved in this legal process by RTGA have been either debunked or involve opinions over science to make this harder for you. Cigarettes, though, are still marked as safe. Still with me? Hello? I appreciate that look into Australia, Adam Breezetones, because that seems ridiculous that you have to go to a doctor to get a prescription, and then you have to go to a pharmacist to get your vape gear and your liquid. That is crazy to me. That's going to be nothing but unsuccessful, I think. I don't think we're going to see as many vapors popping up in Australia with that. That is the worst way they could have possibly done it. That's like the jump through the most hoops possible. You have to prove to your doctor that, like, you tried everything else. That's crazy to me. It's a consumer product, man. It's a consumer product, man.
I have no words.
No.
I'm curious about the tried ever. Like, what are the boundaries there? Like, does that include, like the kind of goofy CDC tips, like eat some celery, go for a walk, snap a rubber band on you, suck through a straw? Like, do you have to prove you've done all of those things too?
They might make you run like the whole gamut. They're like, okay, well, now that you're here in the office, eat a piece of celery. Did that help? Okay.
No.
Do the rubber band thing. Did that help? No. Okay.
Let's try hypnosis.
Yeah. Did
Follow
this work?
the,
No? Okay.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
go
long,
home for 2 weeks and then
rigor-
come back and tell us how it went.
If you're still
Right.
smoking and the celery didn't work, then maybe.
I guess we'll talk again in a month.
Yeah, then maybe I'll
Carrots.
give you a prescription.
Oh my God.
And the thing is with the prescriptions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam Breezetones from the chat, you have to predict how much liquid you're going to vape for the rest of the year. And that's what your prescription is for. So they have to calculate mathematically, you vape 3 mils of liquid a day. That means you'll vape this much liquid a month.
What?
That means you'll vape this much liquid a year. That's how much you're allowed to have. That's your prescription. You have to
Oh my
guess
God.
how much nicotine you're going to need for the year.
Oh, wow. That may be the worst part. I don't know if you can say there's a worst part, but that is a really bad
all the
part
worst
of it.
part. That's a terrible scheme.
There are
What?
so many people that have to adjust their strength. Like they try
Sure.
this and then like, okay, no, it's not enough. Maybe I need to go up. Maybe I need to, I mean, I guess going down under this scheme wouldn't be a huge, no, what?
bad.
Just, oh my God.
Australia. Yeah. Every time I look around in the world and I see like bad vape legislation, I'm like, oh, Australia's getting it bad. Australia's getting it real bad.
But I mean, meanwhile, their neighbors in New Zealand are actually getting it kind of right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting it kind of
Don't they
right.
talk to each other? Is there some weird football rivalry where they can't be friends?
Or do they have rugby or something? I don't, what
Is there
the deal?
some weird rugby rivalry where they can't be friends?
No, well, I mean, as far as I know, I believe the citizens are all definitely friends. You know, maybe the leaders are maybe the leaders are enemy, but for a really long time
Probably.
in Australia, New Zealand was like, that's where you get your vape gear. Vaporize in Australia or in New Zealand is like the biggest distro in the country. The majority of their stuff went straight to Australia. They were just Australia was ordering it directly from New Zealand. Now that's illegal unless you have a prescription. So you can't really do that. Shit, we are supposed to talk about smokeless tobacco today, which we are going to get to in 1 second.
Yes.
But I want to call out 2 more threads that I saw that were really, really great. I might not read one of them, but I did want to call out my patron, Derek. I'm so fucking proud of you, Derek, for this Twitter thread. This is a spectacular Twitter thread. Derek works in a shop. He works in a shop, and he said, so instead of telling my own quit smoking story for World Vape Day 21 today, I thought I'd tell a different story. So as few may know, I have worked full-time at a vape shop in my hometown for over 4 years now. About a year into me working there, I had an older gentleman come in. He was a 30-plus year smoker and thought he would be a lifetime smoker. He unfortunately had COPD from smoking cigarettes for all those years. We were able to get him set up with a vape and some 12 milligram e-liquid at this time. The gentleman keeps coming back for about a year after. One day he comes in and he doesn't want anything other than to give us some good news. He said he had just went to his doctor and he found out that his COPD had went back into remission. His doctor wouldn't admit it, but myself and him both knew that vaping saved his life. It beat COPD. Years later, and I still remember that guy. I will never forget his story. His story is not anecdotal either. There are millions more just like him that vaping has helped in one way or another. This is a life-saving, life-changing technology. We have to make sure that this technology sticks around to help many more, despite what the news tells you. These are real people with real stories of vaping saving their life. Yeah! Well done, Derek. Well done, Derek. So proud of you, man. That was an awesome Twitter thread. That put a big smile on my face. It's like, yes, bro, COPD, vape shop, Derek. I love you, man.
Can I will add just quickly, that story is very similar to a friend of mine from New Jersey. Some folks may know the name Dan Donahue. And his story his personal story is very similar. So it's not just the millions of people that vaping has helped because of quitting smoking. It's potentially hundreds of thousands or more people, maybe over 1 million, who have had that smoking attributable COPD, and that's a huge one. The fact that tons of people are experiencing going into remission with COPD because of switching to vaping. That's significant.
Yeah, it is significant. And it's one of those things that keeps happening. This study keeps going on. They did the 3-year study. Pelosa and those guys did the 3-year study, and then they did a 5-year follow-up. And they're like, we're probably going to do another. And I'm like, yes, 10 years? Let's keep this going. How's
keep
that
it going,
for
keep
some
it going, keep it going.
long-term data? And as long, and as more that this keeps going, you're going to eventually get to that, like, yes, vaping reverses COPD. How could you ever think any other way? Look at all this science. How could you have ever thought any other way? It's going to be so plainly obvious. So plainly obvious. So there's lots of them. There's lots of people that have lives have been drastically improved. Vaping, harm reduction. See, I know we're on the right side of this. Okay, one last little World Vape Day thing. I just want to say I had a great time on World Vape Day. Despite ignoring my friends that were here, I still got to talk to, retweet at a lot of tweets and people, and I thought it was a really, really great day. There's one more Twitter thread I'm not going to read, but I would really encourage you to read it because I don't know exactly who this person is. Did either of you see this thread? Camilla
I think I did.
Anderson. I don't know who Camilla Anderson is, but this thread is called The Confessions of a Former Public Health Advocate Who Specialized in Tobacco Control. I'm sorry. A thread. And it is pretty fascinating. Camilla's talking about how her dad smoked and had lung cancer. Her dad ended up killing himself over this. And so Camilla dedicated her life to, educating and helping people and things like this. And Camilla talks about how she was wrong for a really, 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 really long time until she wasn't wrong anymore, and now she wants to be right. And I think that's fantastic. This is just a really good thread. There's no little nuggets I can give you without ruining the whole thing. But it's an incredible thread, and I don't know who Camilla Anderson is. I'm not familiar with her being a former public health advocate who specialized in tobacco control. But I saw that picture that said, "I'm sorry," and I thought, I have to read this. It's a truly, truly great thread. This was probably one of my biggest highlights of World Vape Day. Just a really great thread. Mm-hmm. Just a really great thread. And I'll throw that out there. In fact, I'll throw that in the chat right now. But what we have to do now, where'd my chat go? It doesn't matter. It's just gone.
Disappeared into the ether.
It's almost like I'm a professional YouTuber. Okay, there you go. That's in the chat. I saw some super chats come in. Not sure who this first one is from. Purple picture. It says, "Hey Nick, my super chats always disappear, but keep fighting the good fight. I will keep helping as long as I can." Yes, Legion Vape sent me. All right, I appreciate that very much. Chasing Cloud says, "I've heard it all. I've been called a junkie, piece of shit, disgusting, all related to addiction. And if you have never been an addict, how can you judge someone for living in hell? I'm 5 years sober and clean for the win." Congratulations, Chasing Clouds and Flavor Reviews. And stigmatizing, probably my least favorite thing, I don't know, on earth, probably. Barbara Burgess says, off topic, but happy birthday to Brian Green. That's right. It's my brother's birthday today.
Aw, it's my dad's birthday today.
Really? All right. Happy birthday, Danielle's dad. Happy birthday, my brother. That's crazy. June 1st. I know like four other June 1st birthdays.
And my birthday is Friday, just so you know. Oh, it's birthday week, guys.
Oh, it's birthday week. Oh, I wish I knew that. Okay, well, I'm going to get you something, but it might take a while to get there. We'll see how that goes.
You don't have to
get happy birthday.
I'm having Pizza Hut.
Yeah, that's right, you are.
No, you don't get to argue. It's my favorite food in the whole world. It is my birthday, and I'm having Pizza Hut. And if you want to cry about it, you go somewhere else because I am so excited about it.
We respect Pizza Hut here, Alex.
About Pizza Hut.
It's trash food, and that's fine. I work in real pizza
shops, so
it's fine. I know it's not real pizza. It's trash pizza. It's garbage pizza, but I love it so much.
You can't gatekeep pizza, man. Pizza's pizza. You can't be like, that's not real pizza. All pizza is real pizza.
I don't know. Chicago deep dish is more like a casserole fighting.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
I'll say
that's
that.
a little
it
weird.
Is like,
yeah.
It's
like a casserole on a loaf of bread.
I would still call it pizza.
Yeah. It's not my preferred type of pizza, personally.
No. Of course not. Pizza. Okay, you guys. Here's the thing.
Sorry.
Ready? Does all
that's my favorite
tobacco kill? Yeah, it's a little groovy. You want to hear it again? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Does all tobacco kill, Dancing Danielle?
No.
Used to think so. So I want to explain how I landed here. And this
it was live on this show.
It was live on the show. This all stems. This is over just the last few weeks that this has been going on. You know. Mm-hmm. It happened. It wasn't the last TBN, but it wasn't at the TBN before that.
No,
or was it the last TBN?
It was the last TBN. No.
Wow.
No, I think it was the last one.
So it was the last TBN. We were talking about snus versus like dip and chewing tobacco and moist chewing tobacco and all these things like that. And I had made some remark about how chewing tobacco causes mouth cancer. And Danielle said, "Does it though?" She's like,
wait a minute.
And I said, yeah, of course it does. And she's like, does it though? And I'm like, I think it does. And she's like, but does it though? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know anymore.
It was really great. You guys should go.
It was pretty great. And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I might be really wrong about this. I might be really wrong about this. Turns out I was really, really, really wrong about this. We've used bad science and just, things like that have just all like the epidemic, right? Youth vaping epidemic. It's all you ever hear about. But they didn't ever had to prove the epidemic. They just kept repeating the epidemic and kind of until it became true in people's minds. This is like that. This is like smokeless tobacco to me is like secondhand smoke. We used a lot of really bad science to justify indoor smoking bans based on the idea that secondhand smoke causes lung cancer. We have crazy regulations on chewing tobacco and snus in the United States under the idea that tobacco is bad and tobacco will kill you and tobacco always leads to cancer. That turns out might not be the case. But how did I, a otherwise reasonable, rational, critical thinking adult, end up just a week ago that the idea that chewing tobacco caused cancer? It could have been from the CDC that says that chewing tobacco causes cancer of the mouth and esophagus and pancreas. Chewing tobacco causes cancer of the mouth, esophagus, and pancreas. So that's probably where I could have picked it up. The American Lung Association says smokeless tobacco is linked to several different types of cancer, including cancer of the mouth, esophagus, and pancreas. A lot of similar talking
wording
point. Yeah, similar talking point there. American Cancer Society. American Cancer Society was a little bit different. They said using any kind of smokeless tobacco can expose you to health risks. I mean, yes, technically that is the truth. There's a margin of risk there. These products contain cancer-causing chemicals. Not so much, as well as addictive nicotine. The problem with using the term smokeless tobacco is I think it's too blanket of a term. We kind of discussed this a little bit earlier, but I feel like smokeless tobacco is too broad of a term, and I think there needs to be nuance to it, because you can say that smokeless tobacco contains cancer-causing chemicals, but it's really only like one kind of
it depends on where you are in the world.
Smokeless tobacco, right?
I think
it's regional.
Right. It depends. And there's, a particular type that we'll get into the different types, but there is a type that can have an increased risk, but like in the United States, for the most part, that's not what people are referring to when they refer to smokeless tobacco.
Right.
I don't even know that particular product is all that popular here in the States. I think it's primarily in like Southeast Asia or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. They say some smokeless tobacco products may expose users to lower levels of harmful chemicals than cigarette smoke. But this doesn't mean that almost seemed a little bit rational for a second.
Right.
But this doesn't mean they're safe. Where have we heard this before? And this
constantly.
Daily, 5 minutes ago on Twitter. Yeah. Constantly sounds very much like vaping. They're not talking about vaping. They're literally just talking about chewing tobacco, smokeless tobacco that you put in your mouth. Mouthal tobacco? Is that a thing?
Oral tobacco.
Oral, I guess, would be the preferred.
Yes.
Yeah. I like saying mouthful, though, because that's funnier. But then they're in the very next paragraph, they're like, okay, yeah, smokeless tobacco causes cancer. Smokeless tobacco causes cancer. Disregard what we said earlier. Smokeless tobacco causes cancer. They go on to talk about how it causes mouth and tooth problems as well, which also isn't really super backed up by much science. And they also make another big deal out of leukoplakia. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Leukoplakia. The American Cancer Society says many studies have shown high rates of leukoplakia in the mouth where the users place their chew or dip. Leukoplakia is a gray-white patch in the mouth that can become cancer. These patches can't be scraped off. Sometimes they're called sores, but they're usually painless. The longer the person uses oral tobacco, the more likely they are to develop leukoplakia. Stopping tobacco might help clear up the spot, but treatment may be needed if there are signs of early cancer. Now, we talked about leukoplakia before, a little bit before the stream, and leukoplakia isn't exclusive to chewing tobacco users. Leukoplakia is like a naturally occurring thing in your mouth that's caused by everything from bad fillings or something irritating your mouth, like a dental procedure, or getting too much sun in your mouth can cause leukoplakia. And so it's presented by the American Cancer Society in this, I mean, they're not saying it, but they're kind of saying that smokeless tobacco causes leukoplakia, which causes mouth cancer. And that's not actually correct.
It can be caused by smokeless because it creates, because the leukoplakia is basically, according to Dr. Brad Radu, who is like one of our foremost experts in, research on smokeless tobacco. It is essentially a buildup of keratin, which many of us commonly know as a callus, like on your elbow or like on that finger where you hold a pencil and you write a lot, or on the bottoms of your feet. It's a callus in your mouth, basically. And it can be caused by any form of irritation, and it can go away if you switch the side that you use the smokeless tobacco on. It also is not specifically or necessarily precancerous. It's a callus. Could cancer develop there? I mean, cancer could develop anywhere, so sure, but it's not a precancer symptom or something. It's a callus in your mouth.
It's a callus in your mouth. It can be caused by alcohol use. Prolonged alcohol use can cause these. Too much sun exposure. Like I said, rough teeth, fillings, crowns, dentures, all cause this. But the American Cancer Society kind of is like, but it's caused by smokeless tobacco.
It's caused by anything that irritates.
Anything that irritates the mouth. So that's where the orgs all stand on smokeless tobacco and cancer, which is why I'm assuming that I just assumed that smokeless tobacco causes cancer. I'm going to play a little clip here from our friend of the show, even though he's never been on the show or ever corresponded with any of us.
Please come on the show, Dr. Brad.
We love Dr. Brad. We love Dr. Brad Rudu. This clip came from a YouTuber named Mudjug1, who is a, smokeless tobacco YouTuber guy. He actually interviewed Rudu, and this is just a little Radu.
I got you, Brad.
Rudu.
Only when I'm here, though.
Maybe that's why Brad refuses to come on the show, because I keep saying his name wrong.
I mean, I wouldn't blame him. Brad, I know how to say your name, okay? Please come on the show. It's Radu. You are Dr. Radu.
Come on, Brad.
Hi, Brad. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Brad. Danielle's your #1 fan. Let's hear from Brad right now regarding smokeless tobacco.
Well, since the early 1980s, there's been a misinformation campaign conducted by major health organizations, federal government, state government officials, and their whole goal is to set all tobacco products as being equally evil and equally dangerous. And that simply has no basis in scientific reality. In fact, smokeless tobacco use has been documented to be 98% safer than smoking. And they are ignoring this fact because these organizations have one goal: a tobacco-free society. That's basically tobacco prohibition. And so they have to cast all tobacco products in the same light in order to accomplish those goals.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is give smokers an option and inform smokeless tobacco users, chewers and dippers, that they in fact have been grossly misinformed about all of these health effects. I've been conducting research for about 20 years, and I've published over 40 papers, scientific studies, supporting the idea that there's safer tobacco products. I am an oral pathologist, and an oral pathologist is an expert with diseases of the mouth, not cavities or gum disease, but that includes oral cancer. I found out 20 years ago that I was misinformed about the cancer risks of chew and dip. And so what I did is re-educated myself and decided to basically commit my career to educating smokeless tobacco users and smokers about these risks so that they have educated and informed options.
What else can you possibly say, Brad Rudu? He kind of nailed it
Ra.
all down. Radu. Did I say it wrong again?
Yeah, I'm gonna get you every time. It's gonna be so
I quit. This is your
distracting.
guys' stream now. I'll just...
Dr. Brad Radu! Bye, Nick! Bye. Oh my God, you guys. Do I have
Brad
control now? No.
Radu. When he says, I was misinformed for 20 years of my life, I feel that. Because I feel like I've been informed most of my whole life. In fact, I was so in that mentality that the first time that I flew anywhere, I used snus. I bought some Camel snus to use for the plane, and I was even like really reluctant to use it because I thought this feels bad. It feels wrong. It feels like I'm just asking for like mouth cancer or lip cancer. You know, I was really apprehensive to use it. And now I'm like, oh, snus all day long, snus everywhere. I got snus in my fridge. I got snus in the garage. I got snus everywhere. But even when I started snoozing, I didn't really understand why American chewing tobacco caused cancer, but snus didn't cause cancer. It turns out that they both don't cause cancer. I assumed it was because snus is pasteurized. And I know that plays into it a little bit with like TSNAs or nitrosamines and things like this. But I was completely unaware. And Alex, I know you've been snoozing for a while. You were more informed on this than I was, I'm assuming. You had no problem snoozing.
It took some time. I went through the same thing you did. I mean, it's we've all been. I feel like I'm going to screw this up, but we've all been red pilled by the anti-smoking movement. Sure. And it's very common, and we have these discussions. We had them more frequently in our Facebook group for CASAA. And a lot of people, they find out that we support all forms of tobacco harm reduction. We're not just a vaping organization, and that sort of freaks them out.
Yeah.
But yeah, indeed, I started looking into smokeless tobacco, actually looking into it for similar reasons. This was back in 2008. I had a job that put me on trains and planes and buses and stuff. So I had to, go for hours without a cigarette. And the nicotine gum just really wasn't doing it for me. And so I figured, well, if there's got to be a tobacco product out there that's going to be a little bit closer to that nicotine hit that I get from a cigarette, but I could use it on a train. Mm-hmm. And so Camel Snus was the first product that I saw. I think it was sort of newly introduced in 2008. Actually, one of the clients of the van rental company that I worked for, they were a promotional company, and I was riding back with them from the airport one day, and they were going on a Camel Snus, or they had done Camel Snus promotions. And I said, yeah, what's the deal with that? I was sort of looking into it. And he's like, yeah, it's you can eat it. You can eat snus and it won't make you sick. It won't upset your stomach. That's one of the reasons why I prefer it, because I don't have to spit.
Yeah.
I can just gut the juice and I'm fine.
Yeah.
American moist snuff, I've even just properly expectorating the juice, I still kind of get a little stomachy, not feeling so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was the very first time that anybody had sort of, I think, proposed this idea that smokeless tobacco was safer than cigarettes was my boss at the sandwich shop I used to work at. And part of this was a very practical thing, right? So we're back in the back, we're prepping all the food, and to have to stop and go out and smoke a cigarette and come back, it just breaks up the workflow, makes it more of a chore. But if you can throw a dip in and just stand there and crank out a bunch of ham, you can get it all done, and it's great. And there is, of course, the idea of somebody dipping in like the kitchen prep area, I'm sure just horrifies a lot of people. But you can certainly do it in a way where look, it's not hard to not put things in people's food. So, but that was my first kind of exposure to this idea that it was safer. And ultimately, he made the decision he was going to try to quit smoking, and he was going to use smokeless tobacco to do it. And I don't know. This was like early 2000s, so He may have picked up, I can't remember when Brad's book came out. It might have been 2003, the For Smokers Only book.
Yeah.
Or it's come out of, there's been a few editions or versions or
I just
updates.
bought it
Iterations,
for the first
yeah.
time today. I bought it for the first time. I thought, no, it's enough.
So he got the idea from somewhere and decided to use it in his own life. And I was at a particularly self-destructive period in my life. So quitting smoking was not really on the list of things to do.
Sure.
But once I had changed my worldview and found that there might actually be a little nugget of hope out there, I was a bit more concerned about my health. And when I got the job that I liked very much, and it involved a lot of not smoking, I certainly looked to snus, and Camel snus was the first thing that I got. It didn't immediately kind of work for me, and I wasn't using it as a smoking cessation strategy.
Sure.
I do think it while I was using it, it sort of did help me cut down a bit. I was replacing cigarettes with it here and there, but I still had that need to chew something.
Sure.
I'm a big gum chewer, or I was. And so I would have a piece of snus and then chewing just a regular piece of chewing gum.
Sure.
But yeah, I went through the same thing. And in 2008, I did a little bit of research. The funny thing, as vapors, we've said this to one another. It's like we smoked for decades and didn't even really think about it. Like we knew it was going to kill us. And now this smoke-free product comes along, and all of a sudden we're getting all researchy about it. Like,
yeah. It's a weird thing. It's a weird shift where you're skeptical. It's like, that's why people are skeptical of vaping to begin with, because it's like smoking cigarettes is the devil you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know how bad it is for you. So you go, all right, I'm going to smoke now. But this, you're like, well, this could be this little tin. This could be worse. This could make my teeth fall out. There's so many unknowns,
Yeah.
But then you do the research.
But I was pleasantly surprised at, what I had found on the internet was probably, I believe I had read something from Carl Phillips and probably something from Brad Radu. And I did that little bit where I was like, okay, sure. Like they've got, convincing sounding titles, and yeah, sure, they work at the school, but who paid for it? And so I also found the tobacco companies have funded this research and that. And, it's true. Both of them have done research, or I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's possible that one or the other had testified as an expert on tobacco. I'm not entirely clear on that, but all that to say, for all intents and purposes, as far as anybody in academia is concerned, they're conflicted out of the conversation because they have at any point in their life taken money from a tobacco company. Then you go and you read, they have articles published. They've done their work. They've actually done the work and the research, and they present a credible argument in favor of switching to smokeless tobacco.
Yeah.
So I was reassured when I read what I read in 2008 about snus. I've never really been a big fan of dip. It's just it's a preference thing, honestly.
Super gross.
And so but to know that I could turn to something other than the nicotine gum that was making my jaws hurt and my gums bleed. And that I could buy an actual tobacco product that would give me a similar experience. It was good to find out from people that it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. And as Dr. Rodu points out on his blog, that what I think, I don't know if you didn't bring it up, but it's the blog piece. I'm a smokeless tobacco user. Will I get mouth cancer?
Oh yeah.
He wrote this back in 2012, and one of the points that he brings up is that people who use smokeless tobacco get oral cancer at roughly the same rate as people who don't.
Yeah, so, I was blown away by that, completely blown away by that.
And this is like 50 years of epidemiological research, right?
Yeah,
basically looking at these groups for very, very long periods of time.
So this comes from the SEER program at the National Cancer Institute, collecting data since 1973. 1973, evidently that's how long they've been looking at this. He says, Dr. Philip Cole and I reviewed the oral throat cancer risks from smoking tobacco or from smokeless tobacco users in 2002. We found that users of moist snuff, including snus and chewing tobacco, did not have risks that were significantly higher than those of non-users of tobacco.
Right. So
Yeah,
in
through
layman's
the-
terms, you're no more likely to get mouth or throat cancer using smokeless tobacco, the products specifically available in America and also Sweden, than a random person walking by you on the street is. It does not elevate your risk. It does not make you more likely to get this type of cancer. And the other thing I want to insert in here real quick that Dr. Brad talks about a lot is that mouth and oral cancers are actually exceedingly rare. They are
Really rare.
a pretty rare form of cancer for people to get. And so it can be difficult to figure out exactly what causes each person's, cancer just because it's so rare.
Yeah.
I think he said there's something like maybe 10,000 cases total a year. I mean, that's really low when you compare that to, other cancers and other things. But what they know is that the things that do elevate your risk for mouth and oral cancer are smoking. Yes, 100%. Heavy alcohol use can increase your risk. And also, if you guys are familiar with the human papillomavirus,
HPV.
known as HPV, which is a sexually transmitted virus. It also causes, one of the main things it's talked about is it can cause cervical cancer in women, causes a lot of different kinds of cancers in both men and women, but that one increases your risk. And that's one of those things where you can have it and never know until they've developed vaccines for it in recent years. But those three things are definitely, risk factors for oral cancers. But smokeless tobacco is not
one of them. He
it's
says
not.
3.6 cases for every 100,000 smokeless tobacco users, or 36 cases for every 1 million users. It says the same rate seen in non-exposed men. I don't know why it's men. The same rate seen in non-exposed men. It says while it's not zero risk, it's no higher than the risk among men who are neither smokers nor heavy drinkers. He says virtually everyone is at risk, however small, for every disease. Although oral cancer is rare, it is most commonly occurs in smokers or heavy drinkers who are 50 years or older. However, as an oral pathologist, I have diagnosed oral cancer in 25-year-olds who didn't smoke or drink. So really, everyone's at risk for very, 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 very rare mouth cancer. That's so rare that only 36 smokeless tobacco users out of 1 million will contract it, not even necessarily from smokeless tobacco.
No, just because whether they'd used it or not, they may have gotten it. It could be genetics, could be lifestyle, could be HPV, could be a lot of different things.
Could be a lot of different things. And that's, 36 out of 1 million? 36 out of 1 million, but the American Cancer Society says that smokeless tobacco causes cancer on their website. That doesn't make any sense to me. American Cancer Society, it just doesn't. American Cancer Society, you're one of the reasons that I thought smokeless tobacco caused mouth cancer. But as Dr. Rudu.
Nope.
Oh, damn. Radu.
Raw.
Damn.
Raw.
I was confidently incorrect there too.
Think about you're at a football game.
Yeah.
Raw, go team. That's Brad. Radu.
Oh, so we're cheering
for him.
Radu.
Exactly.
I'll still say it wrong. I'll still say it wrong. That's fine. But I'll link in the description, as Alex pointed out. This is a blog post on Brad Radu's blog, where someone asks, I'm a smokeless tobacco user, will I get mouth cancer? And he basically says it would be really, really rare if you did. It would be
and it wouldn't have anything
rare. Yeah, it would be astronomically rare if you did, and if you did, it doesn't have anything to do with smokeless tobacco. Yeah, doesn't have anything to do with smokeless tobacco. Now, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, there's not a lot of information out there to the contrary of what health orgs are pushing, and that is that even chewing tobacco is reduced harm compared to tobacco cigarettes. I was searching around on the internet and I found, look, I know it's HuffPo, it's not incredible journalism or anything like that, but there was a psychotherapist, Robbie Ludwig. She interviewed Brad Radu and Dr. Joel Nitzkin about smokeless tobacco. And it's a really long, really very interesting article. And I'm not going to hit on like every every question that was asked, but there were a few that were really, I thought were really interesting that kind of educated me on things I had no idea about. But Dr. Robbie asks them, are different kinds of smokeless tobacco for you better than others? Their response is, sorry, Danielle, no tobacco product is absolutely safe. All contain traces of unwanted contaminants. Oh, my camera battery died. In addition to nicotine. But it's been known for 2 decades that by avoiding smoke, chewers, dippers, and snoozers eliminate about 98% of the health risks associated with smoking. The risks are so small that even large epidemiologic studies with hundreds of thousands of users cannot provide indisputable evidence that smokeless tobacco causes any disease. With risks that small, it is not possible to prove that one kind of dip or chew or snooze is safer than another. Let me change my camera battery real quick. You can talk amongst yourselves. Danielle, you want to take it from here? How did that hit you? How'd that strike you?
And one of the things that I heard and saw, and there's a couple YouTube clips that hopefully Nick will put in the description of Dr. Brad talking about this, is that all products are going to have some level of contaminants in them. This is like a normal thing that we go through life and we deal with, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about contaminants in smokeless tobacco, they're at such a low dose and low rate that, yes, the American Cancer Society can say there are cancer-causing chemicals in smokeless tobacco, but at what amount, right? So an apple has formaldehyde in it, okay? It is such a minuscule level that nobody cares, but it's still in there. And what Dr. Brad was saying is it's a similar thing with smokeless tobacco. There are similar kinds of things in coffee that we drink every day. There are contaminants in all of the products we use, but as they say, the dosage makes the poison. And so if it's not at a high enough level to cause or, make anything more likely, then it's not considered, super risky or something. So they can talk out of both sides of their mouth, right? Like, well, it's in there. Okay, fine. But does it do anything? No. And I know, Alex, go ahead. I know you wanted to say something.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
we're back to the difference between mental gymnastics and mental slip and slide. The fact it's that sort of lie by omission, right? You can, if you just, it's like, does anybody remember the Food Babe? Somebody has to remember. She went after Subway for using there's this ingredient, it's this inner additive that they put in their bread that's totally unnecessary, and she had this huge campaign against them, and it's one of those campaigns that we will continue to see for the rest of time, where somebody says, like, if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't put it in your body.
Yeah.
So that whole thing, it's the innuendo in implying that there's harm because this is a carcinogen or this is known to cause cancer. We went through this thing a couple of years ago, wasn't it? There was that threat that coffee in California might have to have a Prop 65 warning on it.
Yeah.
Everything has a Prop 65 warning on it.
Every Disneyland has a Prop 65 warning.
Parking garages could give you cancer in the state of California. Okay.
So it's absurd. It's ridiculous. And I will say, one of the things that Dr. Radu has noted in conferences, he actually attended SnoozeCon in St. Louis several years ago. And one of the things that he did bring up in terms of risk or things that people using smokeless tobacco should be concerned about was the difference between chew and dip, in that chew, as part of the curing and flavoring process, maybe not the curing, but the flavoring, some chews actually do have a relatively high sugar content. And so you're not so much worried about cancer as you should be concerned about tooth decay and tooth loss.
Right.
But that's not from the tobacco. That's from the sugar that's added for the flavoring.
Yes.
Right.
And then just to get a couple more points in really quickly, when people talk about what they think they know about smokeless tobacco, our understanding of smokeless tobacco is based on it's really one study that was done on Southern women who were using dry nasal snuff.
Yeah.
And they did get cancer. They did have higher rates of other diseases. I don't know whether or not it's fair to qualify it as like higher but not like extreme. But that was the study. And so as you, I think, noted before we started talking about this, they just applied that to all tobacco products.
Yeah.
And so when you have a conversation about smokeless tobacco, of course, in the United States, it's based on that understanding. But when you have a conversation in Southeast Asia, India specifically, there are those other forms of, they're oral products, but they're only considered oral tobacco products because they contain some measurable amount of tobacco. It's all the other stuff in it, slaked lime or lye or whatever. Like there are all kinds
betel
of
or something. Yeah.
betel quid.
Yeah.
These are I think the types of products that are in there, and these are toxic, but they have a little bit of tobacco, and so that is sort of the rest of the world's, not all of the rest of the world, but in a sizable portion of the world, that is their understanding of what a smokeless tobacco product is. And the other thing that is absolutely so ridiculous about this, it's, this is one of those things where you see like glaring indicators of how wrong policies are.
Yeah.
If you compare smoking or tobacco attributable diseases in Sweden to the rest of the European Union, Sweden is doing much, much better. They have lower rates of stomach cancer, oral cancer, lung cancer, heart disease, all of these things that the rest of Europe is struggling with. And snus is banned in the rest of Europe.
I know.
The
It's
industry
crazy.
has had to adapt and come out with a product called the chew bags. And it is a noticeably different product. I've had them. I'm not a huge fan, but it is essentially, it's tobacco that's processed through, or depending on the company, I guess. But in Sweden, they have the Gothiatek, which is a standard. It's basically treating tobacco as a food product. And so the tobacco is processed to that standard, put into a bag that you do actually kind of, you bite down on it to release the juice and the nicotine and the flavor. That is allowed to be sold, but not Swedish snus. It was so important to Sweden. Snus is a Swedish product through and through. It's been around for 300 years or more.
Yeah.
It was so important to Sweden that they refused to join the EU if they had to ban snus. So they stuck up to their product. And one last thing in Swedish news, I just saw this today, and I retweeted it, and I translated a little bit. The article is in Swedish, but this is big news. Sweden is on its way to becoming the first smoke-free country in the world.
What?
Smoking is now down to less than 5% of the population. According to Swedish Public Health Agency, it is equal to endgame that we are smoke-free. So I don't know that it's there. I checked Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids website before we started, but there used to be on their website, it's probably still there somewhere, all the super sleuths can go try to hunt this down, but there's a little fine print somewhere defining what they believe is tobacco-free or tobacco-free future. Their goal is to get smoking prevalence down below 5%. That is, I think, sort of universally considered the end of the tobacco epidemic. And I mean, it's not like, Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids are going to hang up their spurs and go home, but that's the big goal.
Right.
And Sweden's there.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
How about that?
They're doing it with a product that's banned in the rest of Europe
Exactly.
Yeah.
for being dangerous. Hi, we live in
And
a clown world, Alex.
Right.
Clown world.
For our viewers, because I'm
Oh
seeing
my
some discussion in chat. Alex, would you mind giving us a brief? Because I think when we say smokeless tobacco, there's a few different products. We talk about snus, we talk
Sure.
about dip, we talk about chew. Can you quickly kind of run through like what is included when we refer to like these products and what exactly and snuff and all the different? Can you just give us a little? Because I think there's a lot of people who are confused about what is what.
Sure. Well, I don't have a lot of those products. I stick to snus. Everybody should know what dip is. This is actually a fake dip product. I don't know what the vegetable matter they use in here, but this is a product called Black Buffalo, and it really is just a nicotine product, but it looks just like tobacco. This is a peach flavor, and I've had this on my desk for a while, and it's still moist. and man, it smells like peaches. It is delicious.
You just leave the cap off that and just for scent it around your house, make it smell classy
No.
in your office? No? Okay.
No, because I love
potpourri.
the flavor of this, and it just makes me want to use it all the time. But it's good stuff. So this is a long cut version. So this is a long cut dip. You have your fine cut dips like Copenhagen, which is really annoying to use because it's so hard to pinch it and get it in your mouth. Actually, one of the folks that you looked at who did an interview with Brad Radu, I think his channel, The Outlaw.
Yeah.
He has a good video that I actually include. I linked to The Outlaw in one of our comments to FDA,
Incredible.
specifically on the Copenhagen, the Copenhagen modified risk product, about how difficult it is to use Copenhagen. He gives you kind of a tutorial, which I figured was very interesting and something that FDA should probably familiarize themselves with.
Yeah.
So I included it in the footnotes. So that's your dip. And then chewing tobacco, I also don't have a pack of that, but it comes in pouches, and you pick out a wad and stick it in your cheek, and that's
wad.
that. And of course,
And
nasal
chewing tobacco, you spit, right? Chewing tobacco, you spit.
Chewing tobacco. I mean, really, as I understand it, it's kind of a matter of preference. I think some people can tolerate swallowing the juice. I don't recommend it because it makes me feel nauseous and it's not very good with my stomach. So it's just one of those, if you really want to experiment with it. But generally with the American moist snuff and chewing tobacco, those are products that are fermented or cured in a way that it causes some irritation. And so just spit it out. But snus, on the other hand, is pasteurized, and it has kind of a salty flavor to it. I know that Reynolds had done some, I don't know if it was Reynolds or Penny that had done some product research in the run up to the Camel Snus MRTP. But Americans' impressions of Swedish snus is that it smells fishy. And so there is a really stark contrast between American snus products and Swedish snus products. The American palate tends to like kind of ridiculously sweet things. I know that Skoal has a mint snus that it is America sweet.
But I want to try that now. Dang it.
It's pretty good. If you can track it down, I recommend it. It's the large pouches. Within snus, you have, these are kind of the regular large pouches. And then I have another one here. These are sort of this. Are these slimmer pouches? Yeah, these are kind of smaller pouches. You have different sizes for your preference. And then you have the nicotine pouches, which I think is actually going to take off pretty rapidly in the United States. So people have seen these. This is a nicotine pouch. When you say nicotine pouch in the United States, I think most people think of Zyn or On, which are more like, they're like postage stamps, like half a postage stamp that fits under your cheek. And some people sort of affectionately refer to them as a nicotine pouch for your gums, or a nicotine patch for your gums. This is a product called Lift, this is a Reynolds product. I actually like their Epoch more, or Epic. I don't know if that they make it anymore, but it contained very highly processed leaf tobacco. It is white, just like this, but it does still contain tobacco. I felt that the nicotine and the flavor, the nicotine delivery was better, and the flavor lasted longer than it does in these. And then nasal snuff. It is almost, I think, exactly what it sounds like. You snort it. I met a gentleman in Chicago at the Chicago Snus Con who was a big fan of nasal snuff. Didn't use tons of it, but still really enjoyed, I think, just the preparation and the act of using it. We, as CASA, we don't recommend that necessarily as harm reduction because it does. There is some risk. We were talking about the Southern women who, we've based all of our misunderstanding and propaganda on smokeless tobacco on. But it is, I think, probably demonstrably less harmful than smoking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about the stuff that's available in India and other parts of Southeast Asia, the gutka or betel quid. which I caught this weird movie on TV one time, and it was about an Indian guy who came to be with his family in Toronto, and he used this smokeless product, and there was this weird scene where they sort of caught him using it in the backyard, and it's a dead giveaway because when he would spit it, it would stain things red, and there was weird kind of like shame kind of exchange, like, oh, like they were looking at the guy as if he was using heroin. It was really weird,
right?
Or some other like heavy drug or something like that. And there was kind of one of those scenes. It was almost like a dream sequence where, he puts the stuff in, and then all of a sudden he's like, everything looks a little wobbly and blurry, and he's like, yeah, this is good. I remember home, whatever. But that stuff will give you cancer because there's all kinds of toxic stuff in there that you don't want to put in your mouth.
And I know Sweden does also not just in portions, but they do like loose snus as well. That's like a really, when I was in Sweden the second time and I was getting tattooed, or the first time and I was getting tattooed on my neck, the tattoo artist, we were just chit-chatting, whatever, before. Yeah, and he before he cleans up and put on his gloves and starts tattooing, he reaches into his snus can thing and just packs his whole bottom, just cheek to cheek, just bulging out, just glunk, just a huge wad of snus in there. And, he gets all ready. He's like, all right, he's just packed. I've never seen anything like that.
Like a little chipmunk.
It was crazy.
That's a lot.
It was a lot of snus.
This was from, I think a Swedish Match does, every now and then they do kind of these special blends. Obviously I picked this up in 2015, so it's a little bit dry, but it's, if you like just a regular raw tobacco flavor, these are usually a cut above what you can get. But yeah, I like the loose snus. I don't use it very much because it like dip, it's kind of a hassle. You don't have to spit.
And you get little twigs.
But, there's just so much more. Well, the little bits. I mean, the little bits that fall out when I'm using the loose snus, I just chew them and eat them. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But it's messy. I got to stick my finger in my mouth to get it out. I got to put it in there.
I feel like the little tea bag seems cleaner to me.
Yeah,
I would be a tea bag person.
Yeah.
Like it's all in there. It's not
Just a
going
little
anywhere.
portion.
Right
Yep.
there. Yeah.
It's the most accessible version for sure. But with the loose snus, I find the flavor is better, and I think the nicotine delivery is a little bit better. It's not mediated by the tea bag or the pouch.
The tea bag, yeah. I just call it a tea bag. That's what it looks like.
Little tea bag portion, yeah. Little tea bag portion, and it's really wildly I mean, obviously, it's wildly popular all over Sweden. Some of the best snus I've ever had in my life was in Sweden. Some of the worst snus I've ever had in my life was in Sweden too, just because flavors vary, between, different countries and cultures and things like this. And they're like, oh, try this. It was a white snus or something like this. Not for me. Not for me. That was an interesting flavor that I'm not on board with. Everything else I'm real good with, and mint and menthols and whatever, and just regular tobacco flavor, all good. But that white tobacco was just...
Isn't it that part of the world that does that weird salty licorice thing too?
Yes,
aren't
they do. They do.
No,
So
keep that for yourself.
That actually grows on you a little bit when you're over there.
Oh no. Oh.
I mean, that's this is a licorice flavor.
Okay.
I had my fun with Jägermeister.
Sure.
And it took me years to realize that I was actually kind of a fan of black licorice. And so that was my all day snus for a while, or that flavor in the Epoch version. But yeah, I don't want people to think that all of the white tobacco stuff is bad.
Right, is bad. Yeah, don't.
You may not like the flavors that are added to it. Like I know that they've got like a lime, and I've tried licorice is the only flavor that I really liked. That the flavor matches my expectations, I think. With other flavors, they come and go, or they're just a little bit too much. For me, it's a preference thing. So I guarantee you, though, just like with vaping, there is a flavor of snus out there for everybody.
Right.
And I would strongly encourage anybody who's even the slightest bit curious about snus to look at. I don't know that I should endorse particular website, but you know, Google
Where can I buy snus?
snoozecentral.com.
Okay.
Just Google yourself some Snooze Central, and they've got a really good selection of stuff. And typically they've got some specials. The last time I checked, I was looking for somebody, and they didn't have their kind of variety packs that they sent out.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first order was the you know, just like what I did with vaping. I ordered my variety pack from Smokeless Image because of your video. And I did the same thing. I was ear to ear grinning when I made the order. I was like, this is just like vaping. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. Snooze Central. That's good to know. Dang, that's good to know. I have tried a lot of these. I have a whole stash of them in my garage that like tried a few pouches. I'm like, it's okay. Garage. Try a few pouches. Garage. The stuff that's really good stays in my fridge though. The General Snooze Wintergreen, spectacular. Yep. Spectacular. There's not enough wintergreen in vaping, so I have to get it in snooze. But it's pretty incredible.
There's actually one of the sorry to jump in.
No, jump.
You brought up the mint, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Jones, who was on our board for a little while, he does Snooby.com. And so if you want to watch some in-depth reviews about various snoozes, check out Snooby on YouTube. But one of the things that he had remarked about, I guess this was a few years ago, you know, while the vaping industry was sort of having this race to the bottom for the lowest nicotine liquid, like for a while, you know, I don't know if this ever changed, but it did. It certainly didn't have an opportunity to change, but you couldn't find anything higher than 6 milligram at a vape show.
Yeah, for a real long time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, people weren't buying it or really didn't want it, but there was that movement of, you know, moving more towards the volume vaping, the cloud chasing, or however you want to call it. And so in order to do that, people want lower nicotine content. So while all that was happening in vaping, snus is going the exact opposite direction. And so you have products like Siberia that came out with like 40 and 50 milligrams of nicotine. I think there's even some higher ones, but like every single one of these, you know, high nicotine content pouches, they all came in mint. I mean, it was this very transparent, you know, it's really just there to kind of cover up the unpleasantness of having that much nicotine pressed up against your gums.
Yep.
So it was weird. So not all mints are created equal. General, which is a Swedish match product, has what I have heard. I've described. People say General. It's cool. General. I could probably the G is silent, so General.
Oh wow.
It's like Euro.
Americans are just gonna screw that up. Just call it General.
General snooze. It's just
the most adorable way I've heard anybody say snooze is snus pouches.
Snus? Yeah, snus.
Snus pouches.
Snus.
So yeah, but General, they have one of the best mints in the industry, and of course, if you like it sweeter, the Skoal mint snus is good as well.
Yeah, look, I like mint. I like wintergreen. I'm a big fan of mint and wintergreen, and just as a heads up, if you're going to go try some snus, it's a pretty different experience if you're used to vaping 3 milligram out of an RDA or like an RTA or cloud chasing or something like this. And even if you're doing 12 and 18 out of an MTL, it's still a pretty, I don't want to say it's like a shock to the system, but whenever I snooze, it's like, oh yeah, this is strong. I always have that realization, like I forgot how much nicotine suddenly goes into your bloodstream and how strong like the flavor and the mint is. It's just it's a very, I'll say, pungent experience. It's a very, very flavorful, pungent experience. And you just get a whole whip of nicotine right into your gums. It's a different experience than 3 and 6 milligram. I'm telling you.
It's different. I think of it is, I mean, technically it's slow nicotine, you know, by comparison. The nicotine delivered to your lungs is going to get to your brain faster than absorbed through your skin or through your oral mucosa. That's what I have shifted. I used to vape very high nicotine. I would vape, you know, 45, 50 milligrams in a refillable dripping atomizer, on a sub-ohm, basically. I would sub-ohm what you get in a joule. At some point, I am no longer able to tolerate that. And so getting my nicotine in a much slower delivery is what works for me.
With the difference, I mean, with vaping, you kind of self-medicate. Like whenever you feel like you need nicotine, you have some puffs or you have some toots, or sometimes you use it habitually. You'll just keep doing it and keep doing it. And I feel like with snus, it's like a water faucet. It's like on. That's it. It's on now. And you're getting nicotine and it's just going, and the water faucet's on and you're just going, and then it doesn't turn off until you take it out. And that's a very interesting thing too. Like, it happened first when I go to like Disneyland or go to like a theme park, you can't smoke or vape in there. So of course I'm going to snooze, and you put this snooze and it's just a weird experience. It's just nicotine on for like an hour. I had this in here and I've felt like I've never had this much nicotine continuously over the course of an hour into my bloodstream, into my body. I felt satisfied. I still wanted to vape though, because
that hand
to mouth and blowing in and out, even like right as I get to the car after a trip to the theme park, I'll like throw my snus pouch out and just straight to the vape, just so I can inhale and exhale something.
Yeah,
it's different.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I miss it. I definitely miss the inhale exhale.
Yeah.
I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
and
okay.
and the snus is it's hands free. I don't have to do this all the time when I'm on video conferences.
Right. Yeah. Look, there's upsides all over the place. Shoot, we're running long. Let me.
Can we do the baseball players? I really wanted to.
Players. Do the baseball player. Here,
I'm adamant about this.
Let me read one thing from the HuffPo, and then we're going to get to these baseball players. But this lady from the Huffington Post, or this psychologist, asked Radu and Nitskin if there's different levels of harm with different tobacco products, why doesn't the FDA say that there's different harms for different tobacco products? Like, why won't they just say that? Their answer was they're obsessed with the notion of a tobacco-free society. The FDA so far has taken a hard line, falsely claiming that to date, no tobacco products have been scientifically proven to reduce the risk of tobacco-related disease, improve safety, or cause less harm than any other tobacco products. In other words, no tobacco product is absolutely safe. The agency is defying a key element of its stated mission: to provide the American public with factual and accurate information about tobacco products. And Congress in 2009 prohibited tobacco companies from any communication with smokers regarding safer, smokeless alternatives without express approval of the FDA. The FDA has refused to acknowledge that its smokeless warnings are inaccurate. Even worse, some of its regulations threaten to remove large numbers of smokeless and vapor products from the market. In some cases, the regulations require companies to conduct dozens of unnecessary studies on minute product details in human effects, which could take a decade or more. This is regulatory fundamentalism, a bureaucratic maze that condemns smokeless tobacco, smokeless products, and e-cigarettes, and therefore tobacco harm reduction, to purgatory. With this delay, cigarettes will continue to dominate the American tobacco market, and 440,000 Americans will die every year from smoking-related diseases, or will die from smoking-related diseases every single year. That is... What? What? No tobacco product is absolutely safe.
No product ever for anything is absolute. Water is not safe. I mean, sugar isn't
safe.
Nothing is.
Nope.
They're being ridiculous right now.
I didn't know this, but the whole like how many smokers there are and how many smokers die, that's just guessing. Did you know this? I didn't know that it was just guessing.
I've heard that there is debate on whether or not that number is actually correct. I have heard that there is some debate on that.
So they asked.
It is one of my it is this weird fear that I have, and this ties into all kinds of discussions about agency and whatnot. I am mortified at the idea that when I die, I am likely to be counted as a smoking related death, no matter when it happens. If it happens 50 years from now, which is not going to happen, but in the next 30 years when I die, I am likely to be counted as a smoker death. And it's just not true. And the other thing that really worries me about this, it's not a wild estimate here. I'm sure they're using models and whatnot that they're supposed to use to come up with this number.
Right.
But it's all of the other things. I mean, the narrative here is that smoking damages every organ. It affects every organ in your body, in and on your body, your skin as well. So it's kind of hard to not be counted as, if you've smoked in your lifetime, if you've smoked 100 cigarettes or more, and then you get lung cancer 20 years later, there's a good chance you're counted as that's a smoking attributable death. I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but it's the
they basically just make it up. They guess. It's an educated guess. It's a really educated guess. Go ahead.
There was this story about the young man who he was a high school student, and he passed out in his bathroom. Does anybody remember this?
I do remember this.
And his parents rushed him to the hospital, and they found a vapor product in the bathroom with him.
Kyle.
Right.
And they said, they took and the doctor, they handed him the whatever and said, well, we found this too. And the doctor's like, oh yeah, that's probably what caused him to pass out. He'll be fine. 45 minutes later, the kid dies of a stroke, completely unrelated to smoking or nicotine or vaping or anything. That's my other big concern, is that I'm going to end up with a doctor or a surgeon somewhere that says, oh, it's tobacco. Just quit nicotine and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I understand the value of quantifying the number of people dying every year from smoking attributable diseases, but it's gotten to the point where clinicians and surgeons and doctors and whoever down the line, their understanding of the situation is incomplete, and they are more likely, because of all of these campaigns, to make the wrong diagnosis, and people end up injured or dead because of it.
One of my patron subscribers, Pam Cakes, I don't know if you're in the house tonight. We were hanging out in a Zoom room after the vlog, and she was mentioning kind of that very exact same idea. She's like, I don't tell my doctor that I smoke or vape because I don't want that to be part of it. I don't want that to be part of my diagnosis. I don't want to go in there, tell them I vape, have something attributed to my vaping that's much more serious, but the doctor just saw that I vaped and wrote it off. She said, I just don't tell my doctors that I vape.
Yeah.
Because I'm scared of the same thing. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense. This poor kid, Kyle, had a stroke, and they thought it was from vaping. He passed out, and they're like, oh, it's from vaping. What? Did that doctor fired or sued or something? This poor kid's dead because of vaping stigma.
Yeah.
That's completely infuriating to me. Infuriating to me as well. So at the end of the day, there are lots of other much less harmful products for you than cigarettes. And despite what you've heard, no, smokeless tobacco does not cause mouth cancer. You won't contract mouth. I'm not a doctor. I will only link you to all of the science down below in the description. That's the best I can do for you. But all of the available evidence that I've managed to be able to find points to no. All tobacco does not kill. Combustion. Oh,
that's different.
Combustion's different. Combustion's where everything bad comes from. Whether it's cigarettes or your car engine, combustion is where the problem is and remains and will be. And it's not nicotine. It's not the all-inclusive umbrella term of tobacco that a lot of orgs and the Real Cost campaign like to use, and even FDA, and they just say tobacco. They're going to, I mean, as soon as these PMTAs start getting approved, which they're going to have to approve some PMTAs, they're going to have to redefine some things. Are vapor products still going to be tobacco with approved PMTAs? So they're going to call them tobacco products?
Well, we're stuck. We're stuck until Congress pulls its head out of its ass. The FDA is stuck with the law, and anything made or derived from tobacco is a tobacco product. I will say, since you're talking about this, I did watch an interview with three folks who have Cliff Douglas and Brad Radu among the guests on this podcast. But another gentleman, it's like these folks have come up in this system where they have been trained to believe that all tobacco equals cigarette. And so even the folks who have an enlightened perspective about this have to go through some measure of reprogramming to change the way they talk about it, because they're still using the same language.
Right.
And it's very confusing. So there's a lot of tearing down kind of old ways of thinking about this that needs to happen.
Yeah, it needs to happen. It needs to happen sooner rather than later, so people can stop dying from cigarettes. And it kills me. There's that one Cliff Douglas quote where he's saying that smokers shouldn't have to die just because they didn't know that there was a safer form of nicotine. There's been a safer form of nicotine in the United States called chewing tobacco for literally decades, and nobody knows that it's less harmful. Nobody
Exactly.
knows it's less harmful.
We are getting to the baseball.
Let's
we
do
are
the baseball.
doing it.
Yeah, baseball.
Okay, so the reason I want to talk about this is because this is one of the number one things I see when I try to talk to people about smokeless. And in fact, you have been brainwashed with information that is not correct. The first thing people usually talk about is famous baseball players who have gotten mouth cancer, because everybody knows that baseball players love to dip and chew and do these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in order to further destroy the myth-making machine, we are going to talk about where this comes from. So there are primarily three examples, may not be exclusively, but there are major three that are used. Public health has used them as poster children, basically, for this concept that smokeless tobacco will give you cancer. So the first one is Tony Gwynn. Okay. Now, I did not do the research about what teams he played for, so sorry. But Tony Gwynn, okay? He developed cancer, and a lot of people called it mouth cancer, but it is actually not mouth cancer. He developed cancer of the salivary gland, which is in fact different. So you have little glands, right, in your mouth that produce the juices that come out of your mouth. That is a salivary gland, okay? Tony Gwynn, believed that smokeless tobacco gave him this cancer. He did, and he went around saying it. But what you have to understand is just because he believed that's where he got it from does not mean that that is true, or that there is any evidence that that is true.
I believe
salivary, right?
I believe there's an invisible pink unicorn in my trunk.
Right. It doesn't mean there is, right?
Nope.
So salivary gland cancer specifically has actually never been linked to tobacco use of any kind, according to what Dr. Brad was saying. Not even smoking. It's not smokeless and it's not smoking. It's very rare and it's very separate, and it's not attributable to that. So he went around saying that he believed that, but there's no science there. That's not a thing. That was just what he believed. There is your first example. Alex, do you have anything to go along with Tony Gwynn?
I don't know who Tony Gwynn is.
I recently had an adventure with my salivary glands.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah, just to talk about how water isn't necessarily safe. I drink an absurd amount of water. I have 2 glasses of water here while we're doing this because I drink that much water, and I drink tap water. And apparently the water around here, it's not hard water, but it's got some minerals in it. We've got calcium deposits on all kinds of things. And after a couple of years of drinking tap water here nonstop, I passed a stone through my salivary gland, much like a kidney stone.
God.
Yeah, mineral deposits built up, and it worked its way through. I've had an intimate tour of my own salivary glands, and with things like that happening, I mean, that is obviously there's an injury there.
Oh, you're sure it wasn't because of all of your snooze use, Alex Clark? Are you sure?
That's right, guys. Smokeless causes mineral deposit. No, it doesn't. No,
Could.
Sure, why not?
Sure, could be. Salivary. Okay.
Yeah. So Tony Gwynn, salivary gland cancer, not related to tobacco. Okay. Not a thing. Number 2 that gets used a lot is Curt Schilling. Again, I don't know what teams, because I only follow the Giants. I'm sorry, but so Curt Schilling, He developed cancer, which he also believed, right? There's a trend here. These guys believe that it was caused by their use of smokeless tobacco.
Yeah.
But actually, according to all the research that I've looked at, he never stated, and it is never definitively answered, whether or not he had mouth cancer or throat cancer. Interestingly, throat cancer is not associated with smokeless tobacco use at all, even remotely, like even in the worst kinds of science. It's just, that's not a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And so,
just looking on his Wikipedia page real quick, just Schilling. This is the guy, Schilling.
yes,
Okay.
Kurt Schilling.
He was diagnosed and treated for throat cancer that went into remission. Schilling said that the cancer was a result of using smokeless tobacco. That's like his assumption that he made. He's like, oh, it was from smokeless tobacco.
The interesting thing is his team of doctors never supported that theory that he had. He would go around talking about this, but his doctors never supported that ever. So again,
Unreal.
this is a
Wow.
person that just feels, believes
I
that
think-
this is what caused it, right? That is, Alex, I
That's
don't know
not
if you have
science.
anything about Schilling.
That's not science.
It's not.
No, I feel like I have like wrap up comments. So if
Okay,
there's a
okay,
third-
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the last one I'm going to do is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is also, this is a big myth that's been
Ooh,
going
that-
on for a very long time. So it's been reported for decades that Babe
Babe
Ruth
Ruth.
suffered from, there you
There he
go,
is.
mouth cancer due to smokeless tobacco. But the truth is that Babe actually had, and I'm going to butcher this, you guys, I'm going to butcher this. He had nasopharyngeal carcinoma. I think I got it. I think I'm close.
That sounded
Yeah,
right
that's
enough
good.
for me.
Nasopharyngeal carcinoma, which is a rare disease that is often caused by the Epstein-Barr virus.
Ah.
This type of cancer that he has no link to smokeless tobacco. Okay,
Shocking.
it is. These are not things, you guys. These are not things. When you listen to people talking about the baseball players who are evidence that smokeless tobacco causes cancer, in your brain, you need to make the connection to Evoli. That's what you
Yes.
need to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, this is basically
yes.
old-fashioned Evoli, right?
Yes.
There is a product, and it may have done a thing, but things got really confused, and teenagers went on TV and said, "Don't vape because it's bad for you," and voila, it's the same stuff.
Old-fashioned Evoli.
Okay, this is old-fashioned Evoli. This is not. It's brought to you by the same people,
Yep.
right? This is not a thing, you guys. Smokeless
not-
tobacco is harm reduction.
It is.
Smokeless tobacco is harm reduction.
And I've never, and even like, I'm going to put some links down in the description to Brad Radu's
Yeah, you are.
blog. And literally all you need to do is search it for a few things. You can click around and read. He does pretty quick little write-ups. You
Yeah.
can get through a few, 15 of them in an hour or so. You can just crank through these. And, he has one on snus and dispelling the myth that it rots your teeth and causes gum loss and tooth loss and things like this. And he's like, I'm an oral pathologist, and it doesn't. But he's got this whole write-up about it, and it's great. And it's like, even just that, even coming to the realization that, okay, holy shit, it doesn't cause cancer. Okay, so I was wrong about that, but it definitely makes your teeth fall out, right? It's real bad for your mouth. Oh, okay, I was wrong about that too. Okay, what else have I been wrong about? What else have I been wrong about? I've been wrong about smokeless tobacco a lot, and I'm glad I'm not wrong about smokeless tobacco. So since we've been going for a real long time now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Let's wrap this up.
Do I get my closing
we'll give-
smokeless?
I-
Oh, he had closing things.
I know
about
we're
the
gonna do
baseball
we're gonna
players.
do closing statements.
Okay.
Do you want to do your closing statement first, Alex?
I think
Well,
we
yeah.
should.
Well, just
Okay.
about the smokeless, really quick. Two things right off the bat. Don't get your health information from baseball players or other sports stars. The other thing is, Dr. Radu presented this kind of this scenario or this data in SnoozeCon in St. Louis, and I asked him, considering that, I mean, smokeless tobacco is woven into the fabric of American baseball, or at least it was. This is a population with disproportionately higher smokeless tobacco use than the rest of the population. And so if smokeless tobacco really is an issue, they should have disproportionately higher rates of oral cancer.
Yep.
And they don't. They absolutely don't, because the 3 examples you gave there were people just sort of the feels about whether or not they had it.
Right.
And I think all told, I don't know that anybody has actually done the research into this, but as it stands, I think we're talking about maybe a half a dozen baseball players all time. Baseball's been around for a long time. All time. Maybe half a dozen who either felt that they got oral cancer because of smokeless tobacco use, or somehow maybe it was confirmed. We don't know. So those examples alone, I think, should dispel the myth that smokeless tobacco use is killing all kinds of baseball players and this and that.
Sure.
It's just not.
Yeah, it just can't. And it's the same logic that is the gateway effect. You can't keep saying that it's a gateway effect if there's no smokers coming out the other side of the gate. You can't keep saying that. You can't keep saying smokeless tobacco causes cancer when people who use smokeless tobacco aren't getting cancer.
Nope.
When Sweden is going to be whatever tobacco end game
Smoke,
combustion
right, yeah.
free, you can't say that smokeless tobacco causes cancer.
Yeah.
You can, but you would not be telling the truth, and that's the rub. That's the rub. Alex Clark, Alex Jones.
Yep.
Alex.
I think he's combining us. Like if
Yeah.
we melded into a person, I guess technically we would be called Alex Jones.
You would be Alex
I
Jones.
mean, you know, but it would not be, you know, there would not be hats and frogs and, you know,
Yeah,
it would not
no.
be like that.
No.
Jewish space lasers? No, nothing like that?
No,
Okay.
no,
No, that's
nothing
crazy.
like that. I mean,
Well,
I like
then-
space.
Oh, dude, I love space. I'm obsessed with space. We watched For All Mankind, and we've just been watching space documentaries. We watched the Voyager documentary on PBS. It's amazing. That documentary is incredible. We watched Gravity. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Gravity.
Yes.
That movie's
Oh my God.
fucking awesome.
Bro, I've seen like every space movie that exists. Have you
Okay.
met my husband?
We're
the man is
going-
off the charts.
We're going through
okay?
a lot of the spaceness. Not so. We watched The Martian. You know, with
Oh heck yeah!
Matt Damon. Yeah, he's
Man,
great.
that's a good. That one is actually incredibly scientific. My husband gets real upset, dude. He looks at schematics of rockets. Okay, this is how into this my husband is in. Okay, like this is for real. Okay, he's got books that are like the modules inside the Apollo capsules and how the computer works. Like he's really into it.
Yeah.
And so The Martian is actually one of the, if not the most like scientifically accurate portrayal
Uh-huh.
of space travel and like what would happen. Because a lot of movies, you know, they flub stuff. It's like,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. No, Martian is like
Star Trek.
incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, you know. So he loves that one. Have you seen Sunshine? You probably haven't.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't.
You need to.
That
You
is-
guys need to watch
I've
Sunshine.
I've
Nick
heard.
Green.
Fantastic movie with a fantastic soundtrack.
Oh yeah, it is.
Sunshine.
One of
Okay.
my all-time favorite sci-fi movies that exists on the planet.
Apparently,
Sunshine.
this is just popular opinions because we all agree on the awesomeness of space and the awesomeness of space movies. So,
Sure.
I will also recommend The Expanse if you haven't watched The
Oh
Expanse.
yeah,
Oh, The Expanse.
Fantastic.
it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay,
Amazon
The
Prime.
Expanse. I'm making a list of space movies because me
Yes.
and Casey are both really into like space and the moon and space exploration right
Oh,
now.
I'll text Josh for a list for you, and
Yes.
you'll spend the next 5 years watching space movies.
I'm
Trust me.
down. Don't threaten me with a good time. That sounds awesome. I want to watch all the space movies. All the space movies. All right. Well, Alex, thank you one more time. Always appreciate you coming on, being on the show. Appreciate your subject matter expertness in the world of smokeless tobacco and snus. I really very much appreciate it.
I try, and thank you very. It's great to be back with you guys.
Yeah, of course. And Danielle, thank you as always. What a great show.
Oh, you know.
We're going to be back in 2 weeks with, I don't know. We have no idea. We'll awesome,
figure it out.
probably. I have no reason to
Yeah.
believe it's not going to be incredible.
I mean, it'll
we
be
have a
dope.
really great track record here at TBN of being purely consistently awesome all the time. So anyway, I don't think any more super chats came in. Off topic. New Wave Dave says, I like the part in Dr. Radu Radu's clip when he says, "Give Nick $5." Oh yeah, he did say that. I heard him sneak that in there.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Radu, you know, even though we've never met or communicated in any way, he always has my back. I feel like, you know.
I adore him.
I adore
he
him
is my
too.
professional crush. His bow ties are just the best.
Yeah, flossing. He
Hi,
likes
Dr.
flossing.
Brad.
Flossing
If you
in those
ever
bow
watch
ties.
this, I want to be your best friend. Hi.
She wants to be your best friend.
I
And we'll have you come on the show. Come on, Dr. Brad. Anyway, thank you guys so much, everybody, for coming out. Really appreciate it. I'll have links all across the description. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. And don't forget that literally no matter what anybody tells you, vaping is at least 95% less harmful for you than burning deadly combustible tobacco cigarettes. So no matter what's in your hand, let's keep on vaping. No matter what's in your lip, let's keep on snoozing. Let's just not combust anything. That sounds awesome to me. Be excellent to each other, everybody. Bye.